Hi ladies and gents, welcome to the Spark channel. On this lesson we're going to work on an IEB past paper. So this has to do with functions. We're going to answer questions based on the given hyperbola function. So we are given f at x to be minus 4 over x minus 2 minus 1. Write down the equation of the asymptote. Remember to write down the asymptote, first thing first, we take our denominator, which is x minus 2, you equate it to 0, therefore you solve. X is equals to 2. So this is your vertical asymptote. We need to find the horizontal asymptote. So the horizontal asymptote is just the value of q. When I say the value of q, we take this one, this is your value of q. You need to make sure that you take it with the sign. So q is minus 1. So the value of our horizontal asymptote is equals to y, it's equals to minus 1. Then you'll have your 2 marks. Calculate the intercept with the axis. So to calculate the intercept, we can start with the x-intercept. How do we find the x-intercept if y is 0? So we just have to rewrite our equation, f at x, but let's write it as y so that everything can make sense for everyone. So we can write this as y is equals to minus 4 over x minus 2 minus 1. So where there's y, you substitute 0. This is minus 4 over x minus 2 minus 1. So I'm just going to bring the 1 this side, and I'll have minus 4 over x minus 2. So if we bring this thing up, we're going to cross multiply. So we can multiply the 1 with x minus 2 and equate this to what? To minus 4. Therefore, if we solve for x, multiply out the bracket, then we can solve for x. We'll get that the value of x is just negative 2. So remember, we said we'll find the x-intercept if y is 0. So we know that our x is minus 2 and the corresponding value, y value is 0. So now we can find the y-intercept. How do we find the y-intercept? We need to equate x to 0. Where there's x on the original equation, we just have to substitute 0. We let x to be 0, and y will be equal to minus 4 over 0 minus 2 minus 1. Punch this on the calculator. This one is like saying this is equal to minus 4 over minus 2 minus 1. This is just equals to 1. Right, so this is just equals to 1. So this tells us that the corresponding y value is just 1, and we know that x is 0, and this will be 1. So the y-intercept, if x is 0, is just 0 and 1. Then you'll have your 3 mark. Let's move to the next question. Let's see what we have on the next one. So now they want us to draw uh, the graph of f. Make sure that on the graph you label clearly the axis, intercept, and the asymptote. So I'm going to first start to draw my vertical asymptote. If you still remember my vertical asymptote, x was equals to 2. So if this is 2 here, I need to put a vertical asymptote. Right, so this is x, it's equals to 2, it's my vertical asymptote. Then we had our horizontal asymptote. What was the horizontal asymptote from the graph? If you still remember, it was minus 1. So we said y is equals to minus 1 because the equation of f at x was in the form minus 4 over x minus 2 minus 1. So now from this, I'm just going to put my horizontal asymptote at minus 1. So now this is minus 1. So y is just minus 1. Okay, so let's talk about the shape of the graph. Remember, if the value of a, before we talk about the shape, let's plot our x and y intercept. Remember, we had x intercept to be we got our x to be minus 2 and the corresponding y value to be 0, and the y-intercept, it was just 0 and 1. Right. So now we can just plot this. We know that minus 2 and 0 is somewhere here. So this is minus 2 and 0. And then 1 and 0 is somewhere here. So this will just be 0 and 1. Right. So the value of a, look at the value of a here. The value of a is negative. So a is less than 0. And if a is less than 0, your graph will be on second quadrant and quadrant 4. So the second quadrant is this one, but make sure that your graph doesn't touch the asymptote. So this is my graph, and this is how the graph will look like. And then the other one will be on quadrant 4. But make sure that your graph doesn't touch your asymptotes. Right, so when you have it like this, everything is good. You can just leave it like that, or you can just find any coordinates here. Remember, if it's here, we can just choose this to be 4. So if this is 4, we can find the corresponding y value. To find that, we need to find f at 4, meaning that where there's x, we put 4. So this will be 4 minus 2 minus 1. You punch that on the calculator, and you find this is minus 3. So this will be 4 and minus 3 if you want to put any point on that graph on quadrant 4. And that's it. When you have it like this, you will get your 3 marks. So let's move to the next question. So they say one of the axes of symmetry of f is increasing function, determine its equation. So what I need to explain on this one is that when the axis of symmetry, if the axis of symmetry is increasing, just know that, let me just write this down. If it's increasing, they are telling you that this has what? This has a positive gradient. So they are asking you to find the axis of symmetry with a positive gradient. And if it's a positive gradient, your graph will look like this. Because this is increasing, and because it's increasing, let's say this is you, and you are moving in that direction. The moment you come through this point, you will be increasing. So they are asking you to find where this one has a positive gradient. So remember, the axis of symmetry has a gradient of 1, and that one is positive. So m is equals to 1, and the formula that we use is y is equals to mx plus c. But we already know what is m is just 1, so this is x plus c. So we need to substitute. When you substitute your asymptote. Remember, we had our asymptote. We had x to be 2. We had y to be minus 1. So you need to make this to be a point. So meaning that this is 2 and minus 1. So when it's like this, you know what is your x, you know what is your y. Meaning on the equation, where there's y, you put minus 1, and where there's x, you put 2 to find c. The 2 will go to the other side to be negative. Therefore, the value of c is just minus 3. So the value of c is minus 3, and the equation of asymmetry, symmetry is going to be y is equals to x minus 3. So this is the equation that they are looking for. Okay, so now let's assume that they asked you to find the, let's say they ask you to find the axis of symmetry of f if f is a decreasing function. Let's say instead of increasing, they said decreasing. So if it's decreasing, it will have what? The gradient of negative, so minus 1. So we can see that the equation was going to be in the form y is equals to minus x plus c. Then when you substitute, where there's y, you put minus 1, where there's x, you put 2 plus c. So when you solve this, Minus into 2 is minus 2. The 2 will come this side to be positive. So it will be minus 1 plus 2, which is 1. The value of c is 1. So you can see that the equation with a negative gradient will be negative x plus 1. So this is the equation for axis of symmetry with a negative gradient, and this will be the axis of symmetry with a positive gradient. I hope this makes sense. Né? So now they want you to circle the correct answer. They want you to circle the correct answer if f at x is minus. Okay, let me quickly write down f at x, then we'll work on it and see which one is the correct answer. So my f at x is given as minus 4 over x minus 2 minus 1. So they say that this graph is reflected about the y-axis to form h. Okay, so if it's reflected about the y-axis, so if we reflect about the y-axis, your x becomes negative, right? So, or if, let me try to explain this right now. Remember, I have the coordinates to be x and y. So if we reflect around the y-axis, this coordinate becomes minus x and y, meaning that the x changes the value from positive to negative. And if we reflect about the x-axis, the coordinates, that coordinates will become x and minus 1. So the y is the one that changes the sign. So now let's focus on this. We are reflecting around the y-axis, so we can write our h. Remember, they said the new graph, when we reflect, we are forming h. So this will be minus 4 over minus x minus 2 minus 1. So we definitely doing what? We definitely taking our x to be negative. So when we take x to be negative, so now you just have to check on the your options. Look at your options. We don't have 4 as negative. What is this telling you? It is just giving you a plan that you can take out the negative as a common factor on your denominator. Write this as x plus 2, and this is minus 1. So now the negative, this negative and that one cancel. We are left with h at x to be just 4 over x plus 2 minus 1. So we're going to look for 4 over x plus 2. This one is negative, it's out. This one is negative, it's out. And then the one that has this one, okay, we're just going to consider this and that one. But now look at what we are looking for, minus 1. So this one is out, and the correct one is D. So the correct answer is going to be D. Then you can circle your correct answer. You can circle your correct answer. And that's it for this lesson. This is how you answer the question. So this was out of 13 marks. Né? So when you answer this question, you're going to get that 13 marks. Thank you for watching the lesson. If you liked the lesson, make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss the next lesson.